today's topic is GAVI. Many of you may be familiar with my colleague Artnar. I'm not Artnar, I'm not Icelandic, nor am I in Iceland. So today, sunny New Orleans is making me quite happy. Thank you. As we get going here, page down. Okay. It seems necessary pretty much every time we stand up to make sure we remind you all which sort of piece of Teledyne we are, where do we come from. The family grows very rapidly. So Teledyne Marine Systems, very, very briefly, is the group I come from. Our headquarters, that's a picture of our facility in Cape Cod. It does not look like that today. It is probably very, very white and icy. However, we have, courtesy of a recent acquisition, a sunny, warm location in San Diego, and particularly today, an even colder and icier location in Iceland. You are welcome to visit any of our facilities. Pick your dates wisely. GAVI comes to us from Iceland. So the brief history here is GAVI was acquired in 2010, joined the Teledyne family. The company was founded in 1997. So within that, what do? We do all this stuff, right? All of this interesting technology, different products, different undersea vehicles. If you were going to say which piece is Teledyne Marine Systems, we do pretty much everything that doesn't make data or is a connector, right? That's sort of one way to think about it. We bring all of that together into sort of this portfolio, and we're diving in on the GAVI application in particular. Apologies to my Seabotics colleagues, these slides were developed before they joined us, so you're not seeing their name there, not intentional. So let's talk just a little bit about GAVI. The GAVI is a modular autonomous underwater vehicle. It's a fairly conventional torpedo survey approach. However, it's slightly less conventional in this approach to modularity. You could break this vehicle apart into lots of little bits and pieces, and we'll talk a little bit about why that adds value to users. Another important comment is in this size range. This is a very compact vehicle. We're 1,000-meter rated. So you can take a small vehicle that's smaller than this table, and you can get pretty deep and do meaningful work. Modularity. You can get a nice little, as we sort of zoom in up here, this is what the end of every module looks like. We get a mechanical locking and a watertight seal. It is a dry vehicle. And we have a power and data bus that goes through the vehicle. This is fully field swappable. The vehicle will recognize new modules installed as they're installed, swapped in and out. So it understands what tools and assets it has on board at any given time, and then you can turn it on and start making use of those assets. Typical vehicle is going to have propulsion, going to have the control module, all the goodies, acoustic telemetry, GPS, radio. Pretty much everybody goes with a small side-scan sonar, a battery, and a nose gun. That's your base configuration. From there, you can move into all kinds of other interesting payloads, interferometric sonar, sub-bottom profiler, INS-DVL, and we're pretty much rolling out a new payload module sort of every year, give or take. These are backwards compatible, so if you've invested in a GAVI, you can buy new modules later. Again, we're going to come back to why that matters in just a minute. So, typically, as we look in here we are, sort of underwater intervention, seafloor survey, we're looking at field inspection from Subsea 7. These are the kinds of configurations that people might adopt. You know, a basic side-scan survey, to some hydrographic, to geophysical, and what you see happening here is you're adding batteries, so it's got a handle on it, it's a battery module, you're adding sonar, you're adding sub-bottom profilers. You put this all together, you can run in a different configuration on any different day. All right. With all due respect to Chris and Phoenix, we don't need a 40-foot truck to move our vehicle around the world. We can't do the same things. We can't get to 5,000 meters. It's a different approach. But low logistics is opening up new approaches to, in this case, the mission-critical applications we're going to talk about now are search and rescue, but you could certainly envision more classic oil and gas, field survey kind of activities, pipeline route surveys, military operations, mine countermeasures. All of these are applications we certainly see and our customers are using. But you need to sort of go through this list. You know, you can come up with creative ways to launch and recover. It happens here. Small boats often end up getting put to use here. And in some communities, small boats a bad thing for all kinds of good reasons, but the flip side of small boats is they're certainly relatively affordable. So this is a different take. So the AIV you just heard about is one approach to optimizing budgets and your project spend. This is a different approach. So we have all kinds of real-world examples we could talk about, field operations. We're not going to talk about all of these, but that's just to give you a sense of flavor. This vehicle's been out in the world, in the wild, doing good work for many years now, and we've got a case study from most of the world's oceans. So our first little example, I mentioned we're based in Iceland. For those of you who may not be familiar, it's a relatively small country, and so everybody knows everybody, and we're quite close with the Coast Guard in Iceland. In this case, what happened is there was a small powerboat crash, some injuries involved, and so the Coast Guard needed help because the divers couldn't find the wreck, right? So low visibility challenges. So what we did here is the sonar survey went out, and based on the coordinates from the sonar survey, they just dropped some lines, right? So they said, okay, the wreck is down there, and they dropped some lines, and now the divers went down the lines and they found the wreck, right? So the GAVI had one role here. The operation required multiple assets. Maybe it could have been an ROV. In this place, they had divers. But it was about getting on site, getting there quick, getting that data so that they could attempt to do what they wanted to do. Different concept. It seems all of us ocean exploration types are wannabe fighter pilots, and it is required that you show a sunken airplane. We have a habit of doing that a lot, I guess. In this case, the reason we bring this one up is this was an operation in the Black Sea. You don't often see a lot of results from work in the Black Sea for a variety of reasons. But this is a neat one. This is a historic find, right? So this is back from World War II. It is not MH370, right? But it shows you, you can find an aircraft pretty well. You have all those same advantages here. You can go out and find that relatively quickly. If this had been a modern aircraft, you can certainly envision the same response advantages. And the Black Sea, by the way, presents some very interesting oceanographic phenomena, some very firm thermoclines is a way to think about it, very strong separation in the water column. So in this case, we've had to work carefully to get some acoustic telemetry, which really just makes you feel good to know the ROV is working. In some cases, we've had to dip our acoustic telemetry transducers hundreds of meters deep to break through those strong oceanographic features. Fortunately, it's sort of an understood phenomenon in the Black Sea, but it is something to think about as you do these operations. Another operation we did with the Icelandic Coast Guard was an effort to go out and look for the SS Shirvan. The context here, the Coast Guard had some pollution detection, airborne pollution detection, and they were concerned that there may have been an oiler from World War II era, sunk, and was the oiler breaking up? So was there a sort of a latent oil spill about to hit them, and they were concerned, they thought they were sensing something. So they went out with their own vessel on a Coast Guard ship and did a multi-beam survey. And they came back and they sort of said, look, we see this. What is it? Is this about to become an oil spill? Is this a problem? We need to know more. So being friends, we went out, went through and started with Sidescan and said, wow, yeah, that looks like a vessel. Which vessel is it? Fortunately, in this case, and I apologize, I don't know the whole cultural history story of who knew about this particular shipwreck, the Shirvan, or where this photo came from, but you can see that you had that background information. You were able to compare it to the Sidescan, say, look, there we go, we're pretty sure this is it. And then by the time you pile on another data processing product, so now this is interferometric, it's not multi-beam sonar, but this is interferometric sonar. Okay, you can look at that and you can say, you know what, any tanks on that thing are long since broken up, right? So this particular feature is certainly not a significant oil spill waiting to happen. So again, cooperatively with the Coast Guard, they had an issue, pollution detection followed by their multi-beam on a vessel, led to the use of the AUV and pretty quickly answered the relevant question, right? Did they have an environmental problem or not? Similar kind of operation. We work, oops, what happened there? Getting ahead of myself, that's the good stuff. You gotta wait for that. Portuguese Navy. they're search and rescue operations, just like you heard about, you know, our U.S. Navy supervisor salvage works with Phoenix. Portuguese Navy's learned the AUV lesson. Their search and salvage team got called in. A small vessel, recreational vessel, sort of 50-foot range, was lost. They needed to go out and track it down and identify it. Again, very, very quickly, we talked about sort of simple launch and recovery. This is a relatively small boat. You've got 2 vehicles. They went out with both of their assets at the same time. Did they need to? Maybe, maybe not. Good training exercise. But again, you could get 2 assets in the water very quickly. Same idea. They went through, found a Sidescan target. Once they found it, they went back and programmed to run over, and they got their photo. And they knew that they'd found the feature they were looking for. Again, all relatively rapidly, low logistics footprint, making the taxpayers in this case happy that it was not a multi-year search kind of situation. So now we'll talk about the good stuff. This is much more recent. It was a bad year, unfortunately, for aviation. So we had yet another airliner go down, the AirAsia aircraft. And it's a really interesting story about the benefits of low logistics. And I apologize for the number of words on the slide. You know, these are going to go back for posterity, so this was as much for folks reading the slides after the fact. But the rough story here is it was the 28th December, the aircraft went down. Very, very rapidly, phone calls are being made. We have a customer in the region who had a GAVI vehicle. Their government was reaching out to them, very, very much like you heard the MH370 story earlier. And you know, there was analysis of the capability. And the capability analysis said, well, to really do this well, we need some other bits and pieces. We need a better INS. We need a better inertial system on this vehicle. And we'd also like to get the better, higher quality Sidescan survey. The customer didn't have these assets in hand. We had them in hand in inventory, an engineering resource in Iceland. And you can see the timeline here. Essentially, over the course of New Year's Eve, all of this went down, phone calls were made, people got on airplanes, and through a combination of essentially air freight and checked baggage, got those assets on site so that 8 days after this team's on operation with a substantially upgraded AUV. So again, the AUV was on site. They didn't have all the bits and pieces they needed, and everything got there and we're in good shape. Sidebar comment, we also were involved here with the pinger locator equipment, right? So we also, other gear got sent in, just like you heard about from MH370. You're trying to both find pings, also map the seabed all at the same time. So all of this came together. And of course there were challenges. You heard about it in the media coverage. The weather was very, very grim, and there was high currents. And another interesting piece here is, unlike the MH370 case, very, very far, remote area, this was not so remote. This was congested. You know, all of the available assets that might be employed were converging on that site and trying to get the job done. So there was a coordination exercise involved. Who's doing what, where they're going to go, towed Sidescans, ROVs, divers, weather, you know, who can run when. This was another classic case of a complex operation. So the GAVI was put to use, and essentially they'd be tasked based on the decision of, okay, the weather's good, the ROVs are here, the divers are here, put GAVI over there to map that area, and all of this, again, is simultaneous with the acoustic attempts to find the pinger locator. So lots of work was going on. Just to give you a couple more snapshots, right? So we went from, you don't have to be in a small boat. They were doing ops from larger vessels. And at the end of the day, the AUV was not fundamental to the key issue, which was finding the black boxes, right? The acoustic technology did its job there, but it helped verify certain things weren't the airplane, for example. So again, this is combined ops, right? You don't have to use one tool all the time, and when your tools are easy to use, easy to mobilize, you can bring all the tools to bear and really get a job done quickly. That's the thematic message. One more, is this mission critical? Maybe not. These particular wrecks have been gone for a long, long, long time. But we're an Icelandic-based business, and we take the Viking connection seriously, so they really wanted to make sure we talked about this Maritime Archaeology project. And again, same idea, if you're an archaeologist, you are not necessarily well-funded, right? You're not talking about doing an oil and gas operation with huge vessels and expensive assets, so the opportunity here to use a relatively affordable platform to go out, and over a very short period, just 3 days, 20 different targets were located. Unfortunately, I don't think we've had any subsequent return with sort of ROVs and cameras, so we don't have that classic beautiful photo to show you. You're going to have to imagine that these are Viking shipwrecks, but that's what the archaeologists tell us. And we think they know what they're talking about. So you go through that, and again, this is just a sample of the mission critical operations, but we look at this and we say that the low logistics AUV concept is particularly helpful in a search and recovery context. That's a lesson we've learned here this year. That the sensors and capabilities we can bring to bear are applicable to that search and recovery. And I think the force multiplier concept is another important one to remember. It's not just about the AUV. How do you mix and mingle and make the tools collaborate to get the job done? In this case, we're worried about time, right? Search and rescue kind of operations or recovery operations, time is a driver. Time and money, you can balance those. So again, you can optimize based on budgets or mission requirements. And can't emphasize enough the collaboration effort, right? So if you take the AirAsia example, from government to prime contractors to us to technology providers to folks out on the ships, and you heard, if you were here for the first talk, a similar message from Chris Moore and MH370, but we would reiterate that and repeat it in our experience. So with that, that's my, my quick overview, and if Bill's okay with the time, I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes or less of that.
Yes, sir.
What sort of batteries have you got?
Nothing special, right? So we typically will work with the standard lithium battery pack as well. The exact cell chemistry, I'd have to remind myself for you. But yeah, our approach to batteries, our approach to most of this is really good state of the state, you know, and state of the art. You dabble in the state of the art, but when you need to make things work, you try to stay on the conservative edge of that. So our batteries are not exotic in any way, shape, or form. I'm happy to sit down and dig in with engineering and get you the specifics on the cells. Yes, sir.
Do you have a magnetometer module?
We do not currently have a magnetometer module. Sort of, this is a sidebar from my Teledyne life. Historically, in the AUV space, we've seen that one of the best ways to deploy magnetometers ends up being to tow them. So good mag data from a survey AUV, it just gets better the farther you move the mag from the body of the vehicle and the spinning propellers and the motors and things like that. So we have not yet gone to a magnetometer. Yes, sir.
The bus, the central bus, that communication and power, is that proprietary? Is that something that another person can design to?
So it's proprietary, sort of, which is to say, you know, it's our design and we build it. We will provide academic partners, right? So they're not a core customer base in terms of number of units, but we have a variety of academic partners and customers, and we'll work with them essentially with an empty module. And so we'll help them utilize the bus. I wouldn't say we're at the point where we welcome anyone to build their own module using the bus, right? But we'll help folks understand the bus if they're doing something custom, and we'll collaborate in that sense. So it's a little bit of open, a little bit of closed. A fair summary for you?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Did you say what your standard Sidescan operating speed was and the duration?
So, you know, the vehicle speed itself, we'll typically talk about sort of 2.5 to 5 knots. The side scans, right, we run a variety of those, and we'll defer to the side scan manufacturers on the optimum speed for the various frequency settings. You know, we can play in pretty much the whole operating envelope. We don't kind of make a stated claim, because by the time you put so many modules in, it's kind of like, well, how long can I run it? We're going to come back to exactly which modules do you want to run, what coverage rate do you want. You know, we work with customers and we can define that for each category, but the basic vehicle is a 2 to 5 knot speed range, and you got to decide how you want to spend your energy. Sonar pings, spinning the prop, you know, and we'll help you understand that.
Let's say without sonar then.
So
how long is the vehicle? I'm trying to assess.
So a base vehicle, so just the base vehicle, one battery module with, say, the base side scan, you're good for a solid day, for an 8-hour kind of operation. Right? We find, frankly, a lot of times the missions our customers do are shorter than the battery issue, right? So their mission requirements aren't battery limited. It's we need to survey a specific route survey or whatever. And the low logistics concept helped them with that because they don't have to worry. They're not paying a really big ship to stand around. So it works out a little different than sometimes you think about AUV survey ops. Other questions? Yes, Barbara.
What kind of modules would you like to see in the future available for this?
I'm a business guy. I want to see whatever modules people want to buy lots of. I'd turn that around, actually. So, you know, we're a Teledyne family company. Teledyne has a variety of sensor providers. The logical place for us to go is to our partner companies. And that means we can do a really nicely integrated solution. But the flip side is, if there's an outside technology, if there's an emerging, I mean, why are we here? We're here to hear from the user base. If there's an emerging requirement